On this episode, I want to talk about David and Goliath and why David was so confident. What was the source of his confidence? Well, that's what we're going to talk about on this episode. Welcome to Cutting Edge Faith. I'm Ryan Howard. This podcast is here to help you understand the times, stand for truth, and grow in your faith. And we do that by talking about the culture, politics, and life according to the Bible. Now, I want to turn to 1 Samuel chapter 17, and that is when David is fighting Goliath. And there are some key things that I want to bring to your attention that I think can really impact our everyday lives, and I think it's so important. But before I get into what happened in 1 Samuel 17, I want to back up just a bit here. When in 1 Samuel 16 is when David was actually anointed king. And so this happened, anointed to become king. So he wasn't king yet. But in 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 13, it says that Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him, David, in the midst of his brothers, and the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon David from that day forward. So David was anointed to become king. And so now this happens before David and Goliath. So I just think it's so incredible to think that David didn't, he got this promise that he was going to become the king. He was actually anointed. The Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him from that day forward. And he didn't see it as something he needed to play it safe to protect. So he still went out and fought Goliath. Okay, just think about that. I mean, I think that's pretty amazing. Well, let's get to this story or this account about David and Goliath. So David goes to check on his brothers. He sees that Goliath has come out and he's been taunting the armies of Israel for 40 days, every day, taunting them. And David is just enraged by this. He's saying, who is this Philistine that's coming out and taunting the armies of the living God? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine? And he's not fazed by this. But why? Why is he so confident? Well, if we look in verse 37, this is where after David says, hey, I'll fight Goliath, because Goliath was saying, hey, bring one man out to fight, and whoever loses, the other army will become the slaves of the army that won. Okay, so one man versus Goliath. Whoever wins, the other armies are now slaves. So David says, I'll do it. We need to fight this guy. And why is David so confident? Well, in verse 37 of 1 Samuel 17, it says, and David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. Well, then God gave David favor with Saul, because Saul said right there, go and the Lord be with you. Okay, so then he steps out on the battlefield, and he brought his own weapon that he was used to, which was the slingshot and some stones. He tried to put on Saul's armor, but it didn't work, so he didn't wear someone else's armor. He used what God had given him experience with. And so he came out fighting against Goliath, and Goliath is taunting him. And David says to the Philistine, to Goliath, he says, you come to me with sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. Wow. Look at that confidence. I mean, he just says what's going to happen. And then it continues on, and it says in verse 47, and the Lord saves not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand. And so then he goes on out to fight, and what does he do? He rushes towards him, and then he had taken 5 these smooth stones, and he threw one of them with his slingshot, and it says it sank into Goliath's head, and then he fell to the ground. And then David went over him. He took his own sword. He took Goliath's sword, killed him with it, and then cut off his head. Is exactly as he said would happen. And that's 1 Samuel 18, verse 51. So Goliath was not actually killed from the stone. He was killed with his own sword. And that's what David did. So you see, David, his confidence was because the Lord was with him. And if you go into 1 Samuel verse 18, or 1 Samuel chapter 18, verse 14, it says, and David had success in all his undertakings, for the Lord was with him. So the question for you is, what is your confidence? Is the Lord your confidence? I mean, we can say the Lord is our confidence, but is he really our confidence? I mean, is he really our confidence? Or is it because you had experience in some area, which is okay. God gave David victories in these areas, so God showed himself faithful. Okay, so it's okay to have confidence because of that, but it's ultimately because of the Lord's hand. And if we're trusting in our own abilities, you see what happened here was God showed himself faithful to David in these previous situations with the bear and the lion. Okay, so God was faithful, and that's why David had confidence. It was because of the Lord. It wasn't because I am so awesome and I did this, I killed these bears, I killed these guys. Now, yes, God, he was the vessel God used to do that, but he understood that it was because the Lord actually had delivered him. See, he had experience with the Lord fighting for him, with him, through him, and that was the reason for his confidence. And the Lord was with him, and so he had success in everything that he did. And so we want the Lord to be with us, but we have to be carving out time. We have to be slowing down. We have to be setting time aside to be alone with the Lord, to be in his word, to be worshiping, whatever it is we need to do. So what battles are you fighting right now? Or what's one battle? What's one thing that's going on that you need God's hand to be upon you, that you need God to come through? Can you surrender it to him? Can you get yourself into a place where you can really say, well, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I'm confident because the Lord is with me. Well, get with the Lord, seek his face until you have that confidence. And you may need to renew that every day. We need to go get prayed up every day. We need to be under the anointing every day. And that's the way we want to operate. And that's the way we need to operate. We can only operate that way now and going forward. So what is it for you? Are you surrendering it to the Lord? Is he your confidence? Hey, I hope this blessed you. Would you share it with a friend? And reach out to me. Go to ryanshoward.com. You can get in touch with me there. And also go to howtogrowyourfaith.com if you want to get the 5 big mistakes that Christians are making today that keep them from growing in their faith and their walk with the Lord. All right, thank you for listening. God bless, and we'll see you in the next episode.
If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe, and you can help spread the word by sharing it with your friends. Visit ryanshoward.com to learn more about living the intentional, influential, and impactful life you were created for.